Never eat tomatoes with these foods. Have you ever noticed how the simplest and healthiest foods can suddenly cause discomfort in your stomach, bloating, or digestive issues? What could possibly be dangerous about a juicy red tomato? Pay attention. A Japanese doctor, a gastroenterologist with 30 years of experience, recently made a statement that even shocked his colleagues. He claims that certain combinations with tomatoes can slowly but surely damage our intestines, leading to chronic inflammation. Imagine this: a typical morning. You're leisurely slicing fresh tomatoes, placing them on top of cheese on bread, or alongside an omelet. Everything looks perfect, beautiful, healthy. For a moment, you even catch yourself thinking, "I'm doing great. I'm taking care of myself." But it's in these moments that the most insidious mistake can lurk. Dr. Ishikawa warns, tomatoes, when combined with certain proteins and fats, can act like slow-release inflammation. You might not even notice how your gut becomes increasingly irritated day by day, and problems start to accumulate. Slowly but surely. Until one day, they manifest in the most unexpected symptoms. So what's the problem? The issue is that tomatoes contain oxalic acid and lycopene, which are generally beneficial compounds. However, when combined with certain proteins or processed fats, they can aggravate irritation of the intestinal wall. This can trigger an inflammatory response, disrupt the gut microbiome, and in the long term, may even contribute to conditions like irritable bowel syndrome. Ignoring this means inviting constant bloating, vitamin deficiencies, chronic fatigue, and in severe cases, even intestinal bleeding into your life. The problem is that people live with this for years without realizing that their breakfast is to blame. But there's good news. A simple adjustment to your food combinations can make your gut breathe a sigh of relief. In this video, I'll explain what never to pair with tomatoes, and what foods can actually help your body process them without any harm. This could be the start of a transformation that you'll notice in just a few days. Share this video with your loved ones. They'll be grateful. The first and perhaps most surprising warning from Dr. Ishikawa concerns pairing tomatoes with dairy products, especially cottage cheese and soft cheeses. While many consider this a light and healthy snack, in reality, this combination can actually trigger inflammation in the digestive tract. What's the reason? Dairy products, especially during digestion, require an alkaline environment. Tomatoes, on the other hand, are acid-forming foods. When consumed together, they create an acid-alkaline conflict in the stomach, which slows down digestion and promotes fermentation. And here's the catch. This results in gas formation, irritation of the intestinal lining, and with regular consumption, it can lead to chronic inflammation. This is especially dangerous for people with high acidity and sensitive gut flora, even if they feel fine on the surface. Here's a telling example. Mrs. Ellen, 72 years old, was used to having a healthy breakfast of a couple of slices of whole grain bread, soft cottage cheese, and slices of tomato on top. But at some point, she began to notice discomfort, rumbling, heaviness, and sometimes nausea. Doctors couldn't find any underlying issues, attributing everything to her age. It wasn't until she attended a lecture by a Japanese doctor on the incompatibility of tomatoes with dairy products that she changed her habits by avoiding eating them together. Within a week, her symptoms disappeared. Now she enjoys tomatoes during the day and has cottage cheese for dinner, and she feels much better. So, what should you do? It's quite simple. Space out the consumption of these foods. For example, it's better to eat tomatoes in the morning along with whole grains or olive oil, which helps with the absorption of lycopene. Dairy products should be saved for the evening when the body craves gentle protein and calcium. It's also worth noting that great alternatives to cheese and cottage cheese when paired with tomatoes include avocado, fresh herbs, boiled chickpeas, or a bit of bran bread. All of these options are neutral in pH and won't cause digestive issues. The next combination might surprise many, as it's a common part of many diets: sandwiches with tomatoes and processed meats like sausage or ham. Dr. Ishikawa emphasizes that the combination of tomatoes with processed meats is one of the most inflammatory for the intestines. Not only does it disrupt digestion, but consuming it regularly can also increase the risk of chronic gastrointestinal diseases. Here's what's really going on. Processed meats, whether it's ham, sausage, or bacon, contain nitrites, preservatives, and hidden fats, all of which can put a strain on the liver and intestines. When combined with the acidity of tomatoes, a chain reaction occurs. Oxidative stress, irritation of the mucous membranes, and activation of inflammatory molecules. What does this lead to? It creates the perfect environment for the growth of pathogenic bacteria, disrupts healthy gut microbiota, and gradually weakens the immune defenses of the intestines. In the long run, such breakfasts can undermine health, despite their apparent simplicity and taste. Listen closely to a little story. Mr. Walter, 69 years old, has lived his life with simple habits: a ham sandwich, a slice of tomato, a bit of mustard, and a cup of coffee. Quick, filling, and tasty. But over the years, problems began to arise: inconsistent bowel movements, uncomfortable bloating, and constant fatigue after meals. He underwent an examination, and as often happens, the doctors didn't find any serious diagnoses. Everything changed when his granddaughter, who is studying nutrition, reviewed his diet. By simply removing one breakfast, his usual ham and tomato, and replacing it with lean turkey, herbs, and whole grain crackers, Walter felt a difference by the third day. A month later, he was back to taking morning walks like he used to. So what should you eat instead? Rather than sausages and ham, it's better to choose foods that support gut health: boiled chicken or skinless turkey, hummus, greens, and roasted vegetables. The perfect partner for a tomato is a slice of whole grain bread, a drizzle of olive oil, and some fresh basil. Delicious, filling, and safe. It's also important to note, if you want to add protein, include some boiled chickpeas or a soft-boiled egg, but avoid pairing it with processed meat products, especially in the morning when the gut is most vulnerable. This combination is particularly harmful for those who take medications or have unstable blood sugar levels. At first glance, a slice of white bread with a tomato may seem harmless. However, this pairing can lead to sharp spikes in glucose levels, disrupt gut flora, and exacerbate inflammatory processes in the intestines, especially in older adults. Listen carefully. White bread is classified as a high glycemic index food. It quickly converts to glucose, causing a sharp spike in blood sugar levels. Additionally, when combined with the acidity of tomatoes, it further irritates the stomach lining and disrupts the balance of the microbiome. The body is forced to expend resources processing this empty food, which leads to a decrease in the absorption of essential nutrients. Over time, this can result in insulin resistance, reduced energy, bloating, and sluggishness after meals. Who is particularly sensitive to this? Those who are most affected tend to be people taking medication for blood pressure or heart conditions, as fluctuations in blood sugar can impact the efficacy of their medications. Here's what happened to one man. Mr. Nicholas, 74 years old, loved his morning toast. Toasted white bread with a bit of tomato and sometimes a touch of mayonnaise. After breakfast, he would take his blood pressure medication and head out for a walk. However, I started noticing dizziness, fatigue, and a feeling of emptiness in my stomach just an hour and a half after eating. At first, the doctor thought it might be related to the dosage of my medications, but later, a nutritionist explained that the issue was caused by a spike in blood sugar due to the quick carbs combined with the acidity of tomatoes. When James switched from white bread to whole grain and started eating tomatoes with vegetables, his mornings became calm and stable again. Surprisingly, the medications also began to work more gently and predictably. If you can't imagine your morning without toast, try replacing white bread with whole grain, preferably with added seeds or bran. It won't cause sharp spikes in blood sugar and contains fiber, which helps tomatoes be absorbed more smoothly and without irritation. It pairs well with tomatoes and a slice of avocado, olive oil, a bit of nut butter, or even lightly baked beans. These foods nourish the gut microbiome and provide steady energy for several hours. Now for something a bit surprising. The combination of tomatoes with fried foods, especially deep-fried items, can create quite a storm in the gut. Dr. Ishikawa refers to this as an inflammatory mix, not because it causes immediate pain, but because it slowly but surely damages the mucosal lining and disrupts the gut's immune function. Here's the crux of the matter. Fried foods contain oxidized fats and acrylamide, a toxic compound that forms when oil is overheated. When you add the acidity of tomatoes to this mix, it exacerbates irritation of the stomach and intestinal walls. The mucous membranes suffer the most. They lose their protective layer, become permeable, and substances that shouldn't be there start to leak into the intestines. How does this work? It activates the immune system, triggers chronic inflammation, and can lead to increased sensitivity, pain, and even autoimmune reactions. People who already have gastritis, colitis, or high acidity are particularly vulnerable to this. Ms. Dorothy, 76 years old, treated herself to a little joy once a week: fried chicken with slices of fresh tomatoes and French fries. After such meals, she often felt heaviness and gurgling in her stomach, but didn't connect it to the food. She simply thought she had overeaten. Over time, she began to experience constipation, stomach pains, and even irritability. After visiting a gastroenterologist and doing a little dietary analysis, it became clear that the acidity of tomatoes combined with fried fats was causing micro-inflammations. When Dorothy switched from fried chicken to baked chicken and started eating tomatoes separately, her well-being noticeably improved. Within 2 weeks, she woke up for the first time in a long while, without a heavy feeling in her stomach. If you love the taste of crunchiness, you can find soft and healthy alternatives: baking with a crispy crust, using a coating of oatmeal or nuts, or cooking on a dry skillet without oil. It's best to add tomatoes to fresh salads or serve them separately about 30-40 minutes before the main meal. Tomatoes are easy to digest and don't create an acidic clash with fats. They pair wonderfully with whole grains, steamed vegetables, hearty bread, and tender meats that are either steamed or baked. But wait, here comes the interesting part. Not all combinations with tomatoes are harmful. In fact, some foods actually help with their absorption and enhance their beneficial properties. Instead of fearing tomatoes, it's enough to know what they complement and what they don't. This knowledge offers not restrictions, but freedom and relief. Tomatoes contain lycopene, a powerful antioxidant that is especially beneficial for the heart, blood vessels, and skin. However, lycopene is better absorbed when paired with the right fats, such as olive oil, avocado, and nuts. These foods not only enhance the bioavailability of the compounds in tomatoes, but also protect the intestinal lining by reducing acidity. Additionally, herbs like basil and parsley help neutralize excess acids and possess natural anti-inflammatory properties. Therefore, the right combinations not only do no harm, but actually provide significant benefits to the body, especially for older individuals, where maintaining balance is crucial. Here's what happened to Mrs. Helen. At 80 years old, she had struggled for many years with digestive issues, including constipation, heaviness, and bloating. At one point, she even gave up her beloved tomatoes, believing they were the cause of her problems. However, during a consultation with a nutritionist, she was presented with a different approach. Instead of eliminating tomatoes, she learned how to combine them correctly. Instead of her old mayonnaise and cheese salad, she started making a simple mix: tomatoes, olive oil, a little avocado, basil, and a pinch of salt. The results surprised her. After a couple of weeks, she noticed her digestion had improved, the heaviness had disappeared, and her mood was more stable. Today, she happily prepares this salad almost every day. Here are a few perfect combinations: tomatoes, olive oil, and basil, a classic that heals. Tomatoes, avocado, and cooked lentils, packed with protein, fiber, and vitamins. Tomatoes with buckwheat or bulgur, gentle carbohydrates that don't cause sugar spikes. Tomatoes and pumpkin seeds, a great source of magnesium and omega-3s. It's also important to remember that tomatoes are best enjoyed either raw, but not on an empty stomach, or cooked, for example, in homemade stews or vegetable soups. There's no need to be afraid of tomatoes, you just need to pair them with the right foods. So now you know, even a seemingly familiar and healthy food like tomatoes can carry hidden risks, but only when combined with certain other foods. Dairy products, processed meats, white bread, and fried foods can, when paired with tomatoes, lead to chronic intestinal inflammation, discomfort, and unexplained fatigue. However, this isn't a verdict. It's an invitation to pay closer attention to your health. The solution is much simpler than it seems. All you need to do is replace harmful combinations with supportive ones. Pairing tomatoes with olive oil, greens, avocado, or whole grains not only makes them safe, but also unlocks their potential as a natural remedy for your gut. These changes aren't complicated. They just require care and mindfulness. If you're thinking, "But I've eaten like this my whole life," that's perfectly normal. We all stick to habits that once seemed right. However, our bodies change, and as we age, they need different kinds of care. These recommendations aren't about restrictions. They're about being mindful. Small steps can bring significant relief in just a few days. Try replacing just one food combination starting tomorrow and observe how your body responds. Take your time. Don't pressure yourself. Just start small. Perhaps with a salad without cheese or breakfast without white bread. Let this be a source of care, not an obligation. After all, you deserve lightness, clarity, and comfort every day. Imagine how nice it would be to wake up in the morning without heaviness in your stomach, to sip tea with a light smile, knowing that you are nurturing your health with wisdom and love. Tomatoes are no longer the enemy. They become part of a new life where you feel better every day. And that is true longevity. Peaceful, mindful, and warm.